please. Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B plus undervolt. Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by at 13, we're looking.
Hello and welcome to 15 Minutes. Today I have a new special guest, and you probably have seen him in some of the Warriors Facebook groups or in some of the video made by the UFA family on Facebook. Welcome to Chris Moroney. Welcome, Chris.
What's happening there, Thomas? How you been?
I'm fine, and you?
Good.
Yes. For those of you that don't know Chris, Chris is the founder of Mars Anomalies on YouTube. The YouTube channel is an awesome channel that I could recommend you all to go in and have a look at. I'll leave a link in the video description here too. But Chris, we are going to talk about you. We are going to talk about your YouTube channels, your favorite images, But first of all, I want to ask you, what made you, what inspired you to go start anomaly hunting on Mars and Moon and in space and stuff like that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of people get asked that. Me personally, I don't know. I just started looking into these now. You know, it's like everybody else. They start off by watching YouTube channels, and of course you think it's, you know, it's nothing but rubbish and everything else. It's just complete silliness. But then the more you start, if you start researching these photos, you'll find you just go, okay, maybe there's something to this. And then you want to actually keep researching it. And then, yeah, you end up finding stuff of your own. Anomalies, objects laying around in these pictures, so on and so forth. But, yeah, I mean, you know, it's just awesome, you know, once you get into these things, it's, you know, what you can find, you know.
Do you remember some of the first thing you find and pointed out and put on Facebook or YouTube?
Yeah, it was. I started off with the early assaults, and I think you'll agree that a lot of these, they're actually clearer. They're clearer photos. You can see there's not too much, you know, manipulation, obfuscation going on, so you can see it a lot easier. And I think what for me, and I think Will Farrar over there, What's Up in the Sky, he actually, I was watching one of his videos one day, and I'm looking, I'm saying something looks ghosted out on this photo. He was showing great rocks and all kinds of other objects that clearly were standing out. And I'm looking, I'm going, this is something ghosted out. And I always use that term ghosted out because it looks like, if you can picture the old cartoon Casper, it looks like you can see the outline of something, but yet you couldn't see, there was no density to it, just the outside, the outline of the object. So that's what really got me thinking and really getting into these things. And then I found out that they're manipulating these photos.
Because now you're almost answered one of my next questions. Who inspired you to do what you do, and who inspired you to start your own YouTube channel, Mars Anomalies?
Well, I think for me and many others, I think it was, you know, Richard Hoagland. You know, you hear like people like that, you know, I'm going to use the term forefront and forefathers, if you will, of these anomaly photos and the truth about what's going on with NASA. But I also, like I said, it was Will was one of them to actually do the videos. As far as me looking at the pictures, like I said, Hoagland, other people doing these things, but it was Michael Witter, which is lives in the UK. You've got, like I said, Will Farrar. People like that really wanted me to stop making these videos. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what really got me kicked off.
Do you believe that there is life on Mars right now? As we know it here on Earth, with beings, humanoids, Martians walking around, hiding themselves.
I do. I believe. You know, I think a lot of people have talked about it, speculated that you know, and especially through the photos, that Mars went through a catastrophic event, whether it be you know, a collision with another planet, a body from outer space. You know, something they've done to themselves, meaning, you know, something, a war that they had between them, whatever. But I actually believe there is life still, just like here on Earth. If we were to have some catastrophic event today, we've got the seed vault over in Antarctica. We've got all underground bases, underground tunnels going to these bases all over the world. So, yeah, I think we'd still survive ourselves. Even if it killed off 3/4 to maybe 90% of the planet, we'd still survive. So I believe that's the same thing that happened on Mars.
Do you think that NASA are faking the images so we won't see it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They're definitely, you know, they're definitely trying to hide what's really on Mars. I mean, and you would agree to that. I mean, they're just, I mean, yeah, how do you not? But, you know, when you look at these photos, you just can't help but, to, you know, to really go, wow, what? You know, I have had people ask me, if you're seeing these objects on or in these photos, why isn't this rover or rovers, because you've got Opportunity as well as Curiosity, why aren't they inspecting what they're finding? But I think we all know the answer to that. I think they are. I think they are. They have. This is the reason why they've got lasers, drills. I think they're drilling into, it could be what is wood, steel, trying to figure out the composition of these things, lasering, using the laser on them. And I think they know.
But they're just not showing the public.
Oh, no, no. And the funny thing about it is, I mean, you've seen this where you look at the photos and some things are just in plain sight. Now, some things are hidden. And again, and I've talked about how they overlay these photos. I strongly believe that they're actually hiding these things. You know, they're covering it up. They're using this like a rock mimicking software to hide and drop, you know, these so-called rocks on top of objects so that you can't make out what they are. But I also believe some of the stuff is, a lot of the stuff is encrusted because of the weathering on Mars. You've got rain, you know, moisture in the air. You've got the wind, constant dust storms. Not all the time, but you know.
I see a kind of thing. What you're saying. I see a kind of like go into the Sahara Desert, park whatever car out there and leave it for 30 years, and you probably won't be able to see it from the air when you fly above it, you know. And I think that's the same we are seeing here on Mars. Some of the stuff has been untouched for years or maybe centuries, who knows? But it's the same color as its surroundings. That should be logic for everybody to know. What, Chris, I would like to know your favorite image. Do you have an actual favorite image that you can say, this is my absolutely #1 image that I have produced?
Well, I've got several here, and I've got the normal ones from NASA, JPL. And interestingly enough, you've got, when you look at these photos, they have their early sols. Like the first photo I'm going to show you, that one there.
From Sol 10198.
Yeah, it's
right,
0198.
Yes.
So that goes.
This
goes way back. You're talking now. I try to tell people to give them the idea how early that really is, because you know we're up to what? I mean, what sol are we up to now? I mean,
1320 or something.
Something like around 1320-ish. So you're thinking 198, good Lord, but it's even sooner than that, because it took at least, if I'm not mistaken, about 60, 70 sols, where once the rover landed, it stretched itself out, it mechanically checked itself mechanically, electronically, did a self-diagnosis, and then it just kind of just moved around in its own, right around the lander itself. So before it actually gets started, yeah, these are brand new photos. Now, if you look at, we can go over the first photo, which is, it looks like a bunch of rocks laying on the ground, but if you do a closer inspection, it's right to the middle and just slightly, you know, down and to the right a little bit. You see these stones, but they look like carved stones. They're not just normal stones. And what people need to see is on the lower left corner, you've got what looks like, you can see the actual wheel marks from the rover.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you can see they literally ran over all of these rocks. Because not only can you see it, if you look at just at the center, very center, where all those, and then just below all those darker rocks, you can see on the other, just over those, there's another zigzag pattern, which is the actual wheel marks. This thing literally ran over these. Now, here's the question. Okay, how far are these wheel marks, these tread marks, apart from each other? Well, they're about the length of your thumb. Just to give you kind of like right around the size of your thumb, the length of your thumb. It's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. So now, how small are these stones? So now, okay, when you go to the next photo, which is, you'll see it there, what I do is I took off the orange color, and then moved in and zoomed in, and you can see what looks like, you know, in the center, just down, you know, well, to your left and just down a little bit, there's an actual carved stone that has a radius to the face of it. And what you can see is there's right on the right-hand side, going off the face, is a nice sharp corner, goes down, and then it goes all the way to the back of it, and starts off towards the back, and then sticks out a little bit in the back, goes along for a good distance of the back of the rock, then comes back down into the left rear corner of it, and then comes back around nice and round in radius. To me, that's not a normal rock. Also, if you look just to the right of that carved stone, there's an actual stone that's actually carved out as well. It's got a 90-degree angle, and it looks like it's to accommodate that particular stone. Almost like when the rover ran over it, it separated the two stones. So
yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
And then you've got this other one, just if you look at that, that radius stone in the front, go to the back of that one, there's another large stone that has what looks like an arch to it, and yet it's really long. You can see it going underneath these other rocks, but, okay. And then if you look up way at the top right of that picture, you can see what looks like a cube type thing, but yet the cube, on the right-hand side of that cube, almost facing, well, it's to the right and almost up a little bit, it's not completely flat. It's actually got like a little bit of a roundness to the face of that. But if you look even more closely, you can see what looks like on the side of it, looks like this flat round disc right on that rock. So again, these are not all rocks like people think they are. Okay, now if you move along to the next one, I've got, it's where I've got it annotated and stuff like that, annotated and stuff like that.
It takes down.
And you can see what looks like, and you can see from left to right, you've got that orange circle. It looks like some kind of carved animal on it. You can see what looks like two ears, and of course they didn't put it in 3D because I don't know if they could do that or not. But anyway, they've got this here, and even if we were to put that aside, that's fine. Look at the one like we were just talking about, that radius stone and that other stone behind it.
In the square.
It's just, to me, these are not natural. And then you've got that where I point out of that cube, or that it looks like some kind of cube with some kind of round disc on it. Anybody can look at this photo, and like I said, if you go back to the original one, and you can see with the natural colors, nothing toyed with. That's from them. That's their. This is from NASA. Okay. So, what are you thinking on these? Are you thinking these look more normal and natural to you, or do you think that they're...
There is actually not much that I think look natural on Mars, and people who actually study our work would probably agree, and those who haven't studied anything would just say we are crazy and we see stuff in everything. But no, I don't see stuff in everything. But doing what we are doing here, a lot of things don't appear to look natural when you look at it at all. For anybody else who doesn't have the interest and has spent the time that we had, they would just be looking at rocks and they would not even think of it. And that's exactly what's the whole idea from NASA.
Exactly. And so I've said that many times. If again, you can ask, I say this, I've said this on Skype a few times, I've said it several times. Ask two questions. You can ask one, name all the planets in our solar system from the sun outward. Can people do it? What do you think about the Curiosity rover and the Opportunity right now? Most people will look at you like you got 5 heads.
What's that?
Well, and that's not to make fun of people.
No,
they're not being willfully ignorant. They're just saying, I don't know. No. And that's what NASA and JPL and all these other space agencies around the world, they're hoping that. They're hoping people stay ignorant and they don't scrutinize these photos. That's the idea of it. So. The other one, if you move on to the next photo, which would be, I think it's number 4.
Yes.
This one here, I love this because, props to Neville Thompson on this, because this come from his Gigapan.
That's the
and I'm hoping that he could give
old Gigapans.
Oh yeah, he's the granddaddy of the old Gigapans. You know what I mean? He's the master when it comes to these. So the cool thing about it is, and we need to get with him and find out as far as the actual Gigapan on this, because I looked for it, I couldn't find it, but we will find it and put it down. But you can see where I put on there, what are these small objects, about 25 to 30 feet away from the rover.
Put a red ring around one object, yes.
Yeah, and this is to give the people just how small these little intelligent objects are. Now, when you go to the next one, number 5, you'll see these objects in the back. Now, most people are looking at these things going, what are you talking about? I mean, I don't understand. And this is one of the photos that started me off. This is from Michael Witter. I give props where props is due. He did this photo, but he talked about what looked like this little box that's near this rock, as he put it. And I'm going, oh my God, if he wasn't correct on this. This is clearly not a rock. And you can see right there, this is from Sol 173.
Yeah.
There's a link at the page. And you can check this stuff out. This is the natural picture right here. This is it. This is the way it comes from NASA. And now, go to the next page. I zoom into this. This is photo number 6. And you can see this box. It has a silver end to it, and then has this black side.
Yeah.
What looks like some kind of rectangular detail in it, lighter detail. But the rock that it's near is not a rock. It's not a rock. Have you ever seen the end of a rock that's transparent on the right-hand side?
No, because as I say, I can see through the rock when I'm looking here.
Absolutely. And what's funny is you look at the top of these other, just to the right and up a little bit, you can see what looks like this weird hooded thing that's on the end of this, whatever this thing is. I've actually said, too, when you go over, it almost looks like somebody put like a car on top of this pile of this other thing, and people are going, what are you talking about, a car? It doesn't look any... Well, it does. It has a shape of one. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying, but you can see like the front of it, and it looks like almost like a convertible, where you can see the windshield, or as you guys like to say, the windscreen, sticking up, and you're seeing like the bottom inside, or in the side of it, like the driver's side of it. Is it a car? No. There's no way to vet that if it is or isn't, but it looks like it has the shape of one. So, and what's funny about this thing, if you were to enhance where there's boxes and this so-called rock, you can actually see there's actually something sticking out in front of it to the right. There's actually some kind of wall if you actually enhance it. I didn't do it, didn't give it to you on this one. In fact, I was just reworking this in Photoshop to try to bring the detail out. Because as we all know, NASA loves to put this, like to render their photos like a 2D without any depth at all. And they're very good at it. I got to give them that. Next photo you go to, I actually note on this too and circle these things so people can actually see exactly what I'm talking about. And if you look at the lower right part of this photo, what kind of weird looking shaped rock has what looks like a wheel sticking out of it? If you zoom into that, you can see what looks like a half round white piece, and then there's black around it, and it looks like it's half round. What rock does that? It doesn't make any sense. No. This has been dressed up, or it's either encrusted, whatever this thing is, or it's it's been manipulated, which I would, I believe the latter. It's that it's been, manipulated. So, okay. And the funny thing about it is I actually said this in one of my my videos too. Well, I was going to say photo at the same time. But when you look at this photo, you go, okay, wait a minute. You showed me the very first one where it shows the rover in it. These things got to be about 4 or 5 inches wide. Or in length, whichever you prefer. Let's call them 6 inches, 7 inches, just for argument's sake. Because if you think, put yourself in where the Curiosity is, now walk 30 feet, how big would that object be once you got to it?
Exactly.
So you're probably talking about 6, 7 inches long. Are these little children's toys? Is it possible, because I think one of the questions you had was, what are your thoughts on tiny people? So we can segue into that. Is it possible that these are actual objects, things that either vehicles of some sort or some kind of, I don't know. This is strange. You got to look at the shapes of these things.
One of the well-known facts is that there is a rumor going on social media, also from people who claim that they have been on Mars, come back again. There just should be something like 7 different species present right here, right now on Mars, and one of those species is, according to some of those sources, supposed to be tiny people, not more than a few inches tall. Though I must say myself that I have not seen any photographic proof on it yet, on the biological life form of tiny people, but I've seen a lot of stuff that is tiny, that could be related to what people talk about when they talk about the tiny species on Mars. But the species itself, I have never seen anything that to me would be a bulletproof proof on its existence.
Well, yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. I just, and I've told you this before, I'm not seeing them. Now, is it possible that they're there? Sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at these photos, and I have never seen proof of any kind of beings, because here's the thing, and I've said this before. What you're looking at, these rocks, or the real stuff is actually the rocks. And people go, what are you talking about if they're just rocks? Well, they're not just rocks. Again, perfect example on this last photo that we're looking at right now, that lower right corner. What kind of rock is shaped like a small van? I mean, it just doesn't look right. So it's either being, it's being tampered with to make it look like it's a simple rock. Look at the shadow on it. You can see a shadow, like there's a light coming up from behind it, from the right-hand lower side of it, and it's projecting it, upward. So you go, okay, so what could that possibly be? And as you study these things, you go, my God, there's no way that these are simple rocks. They're not. And I can tell you, because I've already got into this photo a lot deeper, where that little box is in that rock, if you were to zoom in, you can clearly see where they literally went like this to that rock and scribble it out. So they're not rocks. And that's the point I want to make, too. I think a lot of, and I know a lot of you guys are in agreement with me, is that Mars had an intelligent civilization, I think, a lot like we have today. Some people will say, well, no, I think they're a lot more advanced. And my question is, why? Why do you believe that they are? How do you know that this particular civilization didn't die off, well, what was it, 1941? They seen these major explosions, these nuclear explosions. Was it since then?
Just about to mention that.
Right. So you've got these people, you've got, when you look at those photos, you go, okay, if they were small, okay, and then you go, okay. But how do we know that they weren't right around the same exact, as far as intelligently and, technologically, that we are only 40 years ago? I mean, I'm sorry, 75 years ago it would be around. So you've got like people like Dr. John Brandenburg, who claims the theory about, they might have killed themselves off, and there's two massive explosions. They believe it was over-the-ground explosions. And then you've got Clyde Tombaugh, I think his name is pronounced, where he said that he's an astronomer, scientist, so on and so forth, in 1941, and sees these two flashes, or this huge flash, come off of Mars. They kind of coincide with each other. So is it something they did to themselves? Or is it something more, a lot more scary a theory, whereas we've done it to them?
Or someone else.
Or someone else, maybe intergalactic or something.
The universe is a big place,
I mean, yeah, they're starting to see, if you notice in the news now, in science news, there's a lot more probability of, intelligent civilizations. They're thinking, what, it's upward past 100,000 chances of intelligent species out there. So who are we to say yes or no? I mean, we can close our eyes to the fact, but I don't know.
No.
But it's got when you these two guys, you got scientists, you got these astronomers. When you kind of can do a timeline almost 1941, right up to this point, you go 75 years. Is it possible now that the radiation is settled, and that it's a little bit more easy to actually walk in that surface of that area on Mars?
Maybe.
You're talking 75 years. If you look at Chernobyl, it's still radioactive, but you could safely go on there for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Without being, So yeah, all right. There's another photo too. This one's pretty cool. This one here is from Opportunity, and it's from the PIA 06701. And when you look at this photo, this one's kind of tricky because people. Again, this is another weird a photo where when you zoom into this, and you can see that where I've put the yellow outline is the area that I'm looking at. Now, this is a 360 panorama stretched out. Okay? So, those are not the distance you think they are.
No.
The highest point in the middle of that picture is the actual center. If you were to take this now, the background, and wrap it around towards the rover, it's more of a rounded crater. Okay. So, now when you look at that and zoom in, go to the next one, which would be, I think it's photo 9.
We have it up here, yes.
I'm sorry?
We have it up here on the big screen.
Yep. So when you look at this here, you just go, okay, I see, and I've done this, and I've asked many people I know, don't even tell them what the photo is. I don't tell them that it's from Mars. I don't tell them it's from anywhere else. I just go, hey, what do you think of this photo, and what do you think of this, especially this middle-looking anomaly? What do you think that is? So we can jump over to the next photo, which is photo 10. It's actually zoomed in a hair bit more. And when you do that, you're looking at, I show these people that go, one of my friends went, it's a car. Now, the other guy looked at it, and he's kind of like, because he didn't want to seem to, like, jump the gun a little bit. He goes, I said, look, there is no right or wrong answer. Tell me what you think it is. And this was totally separate now. These are two separate days, two different. He goes, it looks like some kind of weird Jeep or a car. I went, thank you very much. Now, people will say that's your pareidolia. And I'm going, okay. To a certain degree, we do all have it because we always associate things we see here from Earth, and we're seeing what looks like on Mars. Is it pareidolia or is it actually there? When I look at that, I see there's 4 areas that are actually highlighted and actually enhanced. You can see those look like some kind of vehicles that have been washed down a hillside, and you can see this like I said, there's 4 different looking objects that are clearly not rocks. Now, I always say this in my videos, it's kind of funny. I said, you can call them Humpty Dumpty for all I care. Is that a rock? I see in that middle photo, if you zoom into it, in that middle object, it looks like you can see the front of this vehicle and what looks like a front wheel on the front, on that wheel well, but the back one, you can't see it too well. And then when you look at the actual, it looks like it's got like one of those windscreens, like a Jeep, like a CJ7 Jeep would have, with no door on it. Now, is that what it is? There's no way to vet it. There's no way to say yes or no. I cannot take anybody by the hand and go there and show it to them. So, you know, what is it? Is it a rock? I don't believe it. It's literally sticking out of the dirt. It's literally out of the dirt. And if you go to the right one, the upper right corner, it looks like a car or vehicle of some sort has been buried 3/4 of the way. And you can see the side windows. You can see to the left of those 2 side windows, you can see what looks like a windscreen or windshield. And then you've got the hood, or as you guys say in the UK, the bonnet. So you can clearly see that shit is, these things look like cars, man. They don't look like, or some kind of vehicles. We can call them anything. You know, people will say, well, why would they have something like we have? Well, how do we know?
But what kind of response do you get from your subscribers on YouTube when you are showing what looks like cars?
99% of the time, I get people going, "Oh my God, Chris, that is absolutely a car." Now, are we all got the pareidolia? Do we all have the sickness, or are they there? That's the big question. People have to answer that themselves. Again, I can't vet it. All I can see is I can look at it and go, it clearly looks like a car to me. Now, based on what I've just showed you on the last photo, and you look at those small, intelligently made objects, this is not a far stretch.
No, not at all.
And they're not as small, but not very big. So this is what's really crazy. You look at the distance again from that rover on the first photo from this one. You see the opportunity is way in the back, and again this is a 360. So this should wrap around closer than it appears. So how big are they?
That's the big question. Do you think that NASA actually could have tricked us from day one about size and distance?
Oh, absolutely. I've always said that. You know, a lot of people have this.
What we're talking about being tiny stuff could actually be normal size stuff as to what we are comparing it to, but downscale from NASA, so we wouldn't start showing cars and kitchen sinks and whatever.
Absolutely, and
you know.
Yeah, we've talked about this many a times, and it's like, you know, a lot of people talk about, well, some photos have a scale on them. I don't believe the scale.
No,
I don't.
No.
But what's crazy about it now, you start to, in a sense, because I've talked to other people who are into this heavily, into photography and so on and so forth. And I'm going, but what if I'm saying this object is the size of your head, and it probably is, but then there's a little object next to it that looks intelligently made, and you go, well, wait a minute. What if that looked like, again, let's just use this from this photo. What if it looked like a small car from it? On our planet, what would it be? Chances are it's a toy. But if it was something else, meaning if it wasn't a toy, then what is it? It can only be a small person's vehicle. So as far as fetch as that sounds, you just go, I just don't, man, I don't know. You got these people that agree and some don't, and some are on the fence. Well, that's why I always tell people, look at these photos yourself. I promise you, they're there.
I'm going to show you a picture up here, as you can see on the big screen, where you actually see NASA writing names of different mountains in the background, and with the size scale that they're adding to the pictures, you can see there are about 15 meters from one mountain to the next mountain and 10 meters to the next mountain. So that would actually be mountains something like 20 meters wide. Yeah. Or is there something wrong?
But yeah, I mean, I totally believe what you're saying, and you know, and I think the scaling is all wrong on these things, because I've said this before about Mount Sharp. I don't think that's a mountain at all. And when you look at some of these things, they look like these objects are literally parallel, you know, positioned, if you will, all the way down this so-called mountain.
If you go, wait a minute. If you don't believe it's a mountain, then what do you believe it is?
I think they're either structures or the rover. See, they give this, I call it the fluff area, if you will. You got your up-close photo, which you got your rocks and so on and so forth. So you got your foreground, and then you get the background. Now, whether it be Grail, I'll be all right. Whether it be Gale Crater, the wall, the inner wall, or Mount Sharp, you always have this in-between spot where it looks like either the information's been taken out of the photo, or it's a fluff area to actually make it look like it's a whole lot further away. I don't believe that's the case. I believe these objects are a lot closer than they appear, and I believe when people go, "Oh, this thing's like miles away." Don't believe that. No. I believe these things are probably a couple 100 feet away, at best. But now, you gotta be able to differentiate that. You gotta be able to tell, you know.
Chris, I know you're also very active on Facebook. Where can people find you on Facebook, and what groups are you following on Facebook or participating in?
Well, I typically I have my own Facebook page. Of course, it's Mars Anomalies. I just encourage anybody who's got photos they want to add to it that they think is it could be even the moon, anything that's got to do with the solar system, anything like that. But mostly Mars. If you want to go in there and put some photos on there, you can do that. I particularly follow a few of them, mostly UFA, the United Family of Anomaly Hunters. I've got Martian Genesis, which is Martine's page. You've got exclusive Mars images. I mean, alien life, space, moon, air, just different ones. You got Alien TV from it says Mars Magazine. There's just some really good Facebook pages out there, and I enjoy looking at them. I haven't been really, I've been really busy, so I haven't really put too many pictures up there, but I follow them because they're just great pages to look at. I just find a lot of, since I'm doing some really good work there, and, some people find some real interesting stuff. And so if anybody wants to look at that stuff, you may want to, because if you believe that nothing intelligent is on the surface of Mars, you really need to have a look at these photos, because there really is. I see some people now. Some stuff is kind of sketchy, trying to see it, and some stuff's just like boom, right there in your face. And like I said, UFA is the perfect place to start, because there's a whole lot of pages that are integrated, if you will, into that main page on Facebook. So yeah, have a look at it. I enjoy a lot of this stuff. I don't know about yourself, but I enjoy looking at a lot, because sometimes I go to work, I come back, and there's a ton of stuff to see. So,
you've great. I post a lot in there myself also. It's a great platform to seek information about what we are doing, our work and pictures, videos, so on and so on. So that was 15 minutes with Chris. That became 30 minutes instead.
Oh, we can go on and on and on. You know that.
I'm going to put a link up to Chris's YouTube channel in the video description here, and to some of all the groups that Chris are admin on Facebook also, where you can meet Chris, ask him questions if you want to on Facebook. I want to say thank you, Chris, a million times for joining us here today. That was awesome to hear about your experiences with NASA and Mars images. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Well, thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it.
And until we see us again, take care. Bye.
Bye.